There is a gap in history so profound, so enigmatic, that it has fueled centuries of speculation, debate, and mystery. 18 missing years, an absence in the sacred texts, a silence where there should be a story. Between the age of 12 and 30, the life of Jesus Christ vanishes from the pages of the Bible. No scriptures, no records, no explanations. It is as if history itself has been erased, rewritten, or deliberately concealed. But why? What happened in those lost years? Did he remain in Nazareth, quietly preparing for his divine mission? Or did he embark on a journey that would transform him into the figure known as Christ? There are whispers of ancient temples, of distant lands, of esoteric teachings hidden from the common world. Some claim he traveled to Egypt, where the mysteries of the pharaohs and the sacred wisdom of the Hermetic priests were passed down in secrecy. Others say he journeyed to India and Tibet, where the sacred texts of the East speak of a Western sage who mastered the art of divine consciousness. And yet, there are those who believe he walked the forgotten paths of the Druids, learning from the Celtic mystics who saw beyond the veil of ordinary reality. But if these stories are true, why were they hidden? In this video, we will unravel the clues, explore the esoteric significance of these lost years, and examine the forbidden teachings that may have shaped one of the most influential figures in human history. Stay with me, because what we are about to uncover may change everything you thought you knew. To understand the significance of Jesus' lost years, we must first look at what history has chosen to forget, or perhaps what has been intentionally hidden. The New Testament offers us glimpses of Jesus as a child, his teachings in the temple, his divine wisdom astonishing even the most learned scholars of his time. Then suddenly, silence. For nearly 2 decades, the scriptures reveal nothing. And when he reappears at the age of 30, he is no longer just a man. He is a master, a Messiah, a being of profound wisdom and miraculous power. So where did he go? What happened in those missing years that transformed him into Christ? Although the Bible is silent, other ancient texts whisper fragments of a deeper story. The Gnostic Gospels, Buddhist records, and forgotten manuscripts from the Middle East to the Himalayas all hint at a journey, a pilgrimage of transformation. In India, the legend of Saint Isa describes a foreign sage who traveled through the lands of the Brahmins and Buddhist monks, learning the sacred laws of the universe before returning to the West. In Egypt, the teachings of the ancient mystery schools suggest that Jesus may have studied the esoteric wisdom of Thoth and Hermes Trismegistus, the knowledge of alchemy, resurrection, and divine consciousness. In Persia and Babylon, mystical traditions speak of a traveler from Judea who absorbed the secrets of Zoroastrianism, where the eternal battle between light and darkness was deeply understood. Among the Druids, legends persist of a great teacher from the East who learned the secrets of nature, energy, and celestial cycles before his destined return to Jerusalem. Each of these paths offers a missing piece of a greater puzzle, one that may reveal how Jesus mastered the profound spiritual forces that would later define his teachings. If Jesus did, in fact, travel beyond Judea and study in the mystery schools of the ancient world, why does the Bible not speak of it? The answer may lie in the political and religious forces that shaped Christianity long after Jesus' time. The Council of Nicaea, 325 AD, a pivotal moment in history when the Roman Empire solidified its control over Christian doctrine. Texts that contradicted the official narrative were labeled heretical, hidden, or destroyed. The Gnostic Gospels, which spoke of secret knowledge, were buried for centuries, only to be rediscovered in the sands of Nag Hammadi in 1945. The very idea that Jesus may have studied under mystical teachers of other traditions threatened the control of organized religion, which sought to present him as a singular divine figure, not a seeker who learned from other wisdom traditions. But truth cannot be erased forever. The fragments remain, waiting for those who seek to uncover them. And if we piece them together, we begin to see a radical, transformative truth, one that could change our understanding of Jesus, spirituality, and the very nature of enlightenment itself. But this is just the beginning. In the next part, we will explore the most compelling theories of where Jesus may have traveled and the sacred wisdom he may have attained. For centuries, scholars, mystics, and seekers of hidden truth have asked the same question. If Jesus did not remain in Nazareth during his lost years, where did he go? The answer may be hidden not in one place, but in many. The echoes of his journey can be found scattered across ancient civilizations, in sacred texts and oral traditions that have survived despite history's attempt to erase them. What if Jesus' transformation from a child to a Christed being was not merely the result of divine revelation, but of spiritual initiation, a journey of learning, practice, and mastery that prepared him for his ultimate mission? Let us follow the path of his possible travels, beginning with the lands most steeped in ancient wisdom. Among the most intriguing accounts of Jesus' lost years is the story of Saint Isa, a name believed to be a variation of Jesus. This story emerges from Buddhist and Hindu texts found in India, Nepal, and Tibet. In the Hemis monastery of Ladakh, high in the Himalayas, records were discovered in the late 19th century describing a foreign sage from the West who traveled through the region, studying the Vedas and Buddhist scriptures. This sage, known as Isa, was said to have challenged the rigid caste system of India, defending the poor and preaching a message of compassion, teachings identical to those Jesus would later deliver in the Middle East. The Buddhist accounts go even further, stating that Isa spent years in Tibet, where he trained with the great lamas in the art of divine consciousness, the mysteries of karma, and the path to enlightenment. Could it be that Jesus, in these formative years, absorbed the profound wisdom of the East, the concepts of oneness, reincarnation, and the illusory nature of the physical world, before bringing these insights back to the West? This theory is not new. Even the famed Russian philosopher Nicholas Roerich, who traveled extensively through the Himalayas, wrote of the Tibetan scrolls that describe the Western saint who mastered the spiritual laws of the universe. But if Jesus was trained in the wisdom of India and Tibet, why would this knowledge be hidden? Because it threatens the foundation of traditional Christian doctrine. If Jesus was not born fully omniscient, but instead learned and evolved like all great masters before him, then the rigid institutions of power could no longer dictate a monopoly on his teachings. The idea that he studied in India, among sages who spoke of reincarnation, karma, and the unity of all spiritual traditions, directly challenges the dogma that salvation can only be achieved through one religion. But India and Tibet were only part of his journey. Another compelling theory suggests that Jesus spent his lost years in Egypt, where the great mystery schools of the ancient world preserved knowledge that had been passed down from Atlantis to the pharaohs. This is not speculation alone. The Bible itself hints at this connection. In the Gospel of Matthew, we are told that Jesus fled to Egypt as a child to escape King Herod's decree to kill all firstborn males. If his family sought refuge there, is it not possible that he later returned to study in its ancient temples? The mystery schools of Egypt were known to initiate only the most dedicated seekers into the secrets of resurrection, divine consciousness, and the transformation of the human soul. These were the same schools where Pythagoras, Plato, and Moses himself are said to have trained. The esoteric texts of Hermes Trismegistus, preserved in the Corpus Hermeticum, describe the process of spiritual ascension, the transmutation of the human into the divine. The very miracles Jesus would later perform, healing the sick, raising the dead, walking on water, are identical to the teachings of the Egyptian initiates. In fact, early depictions of Christ in Christian art bear an uncanny resemblance to depictions of Osiris, the resurrected god of Egypt. Was this merely coincidence or evidence of a deeper connection? Could Jesus have walked the halls of the great pyramids, learned the mysteries of energy, healing, and ascension, only to return to Judea and teach these forbidden truths to the world? If Jesus did in fact study in these sacred lands, what he returned with was not just wisdom, but a revolution that shattered the illusion of separation between man and the divine. A revolution that taught that the kingdom of heaven was not above, but within. A revolution that would ultimately lead to his persecution. The priests and rulers of the time were terrified of this knowledge, because if every man and woman could achieve divinity, there would be no need for an external church, for religious control, for spiritual hierarchy. And so, his lost years became buried history, erased from the scriptures, hidden from those who sought the truth. But what if these teachings are still accessible? What if we could uncover the very wisdom that shaped Jesus into the Christ? In the next section, we will explore the final leg of his journey, the places that hold the last missing pieces of this great mystery, and the secrets he may have brought back that could change everything. If Jesus spent his lost years traveling across the sacred lands of India, Tibet, and Egypt, absorbing the wisdom of the ages, then what was the final stage of his initiation? Was there one last mystery he needed to unravel before stepping fully into his divine mission? Some believe that his journey did not end in the East or the temples of Egypt. Instead, he may have traveled to the lands of the mystic Druids, the Celtic sages of the West, or even further, to places where knowledge was preserved long before the rise of civilization as we know it. One of the most overlooked theories is that Jesus may have traveled to Britain, where the ancient Druids were known to be keepers of sacred wisdom. The Druids were masters of the natural forces, the cycles of the stars, and the hidden knowledge of energy and consciousness. They practiced healing, divination, and the sacred art of initiation, teaching that the soul could ascend beyond the confines of the physical world. Their wisdom, like that of the Egyptian and Eastern mystics, was deeply aligned with the very teachings that Jesus would later bring forth. Some accounts suggest that Jesus was brought to Britain by Joseph of Arimathea, a wealthy merchant who is said to have had close ties with the Druids. The legend states that Jesus visited Glastonbury, a sacred land known as the Isle of Avalon, where he walked among the stone circles, the ancient temples that predated even the pyramids of Egypt. Why is this important? Because the Druids, like the Hermetic priests and Eastern mystics, believed in the concept of spiritual transmutation, that human beings could attain enlightenment through deep spiritual practice and initiation. If Jesus spent time among them, he may have completed his training in the mysteries of energy, nature, and the sacred cycles of life and death. But the Druids were wiped out by the Roman conquest, and their teachings, like so many others, were eradicated, leaving only whispers of their wisdom behind. Regardless of whether Jesus' lost years were spent in India, Tibet, Egypt, or the West, there is one undeniable truth. He returned transformed. The man who emerged from this 18-year silence was no longer just Jesus of Nazareth. He was a master, a being who had pierced the illusion of this world and understood the eternal truth of existence. And when he began to teach, his message was radically different from the religious structures of the time. Instead of external rituals, he spoke of inner transformation. Instead of temples, he said the kingdom of God is within. Instead of separation, he revealed the oneness of all things. These were not the words of an ordinary man. These were the words of someone who had seen beyond the veil. But what if his true teachings were too dangerous for the world? If the story of Jesus' lost years is true, if he traveled across the world, absorbing the hidden knowledge of the ancient traditions, then why is there no trace of it in the Bible? Because to admit this would mean acknowledging that 1. Jesus was not a singular divine figure, but a seeker, someone who learned and evolved, just as all great masters before him had. 2. The wisdom of enlightenment is not exclusive to one faith, but universal, found in every ancient spiritual tradition. 3. The power of divinity is within each of us, not given by any religious institution. This knowledge would have dismantled the foundations of religious control. It would have meant that spiritual enlightenment is not granted by a church, not determined by an authority, but something every individual can attain. And so these lost years were erased, concealed, forgotten. But truth cannot be hidden forever. In the ancient texts, in the temples of the past, in the stories that refuse to die, we can still trace the footsteps of his journey. We can still uncover the mystical path that turned a man into a Christ. And if we understand this, then perhaps we can follow that path as well. But what does this mean for us today? How can we apply these hidden truths to our own spiritual journey? In the next section, we will explore the practical applications of this wisdom, how the lost teachings of Jesus can transform our consciousness, just as they transformed him. If the lost years of Jesus were indeed a time of deep spiritual transformation, then his story is not just a historical mystery, it is a blueprint for our own evolution. The question is no longer where he traveled or what he learned. The question is, how can we apply this same journey of transformation to our own lives? Because if Jesus walked the path of initiation, then that path still exists. And if he attained divine mastery, then so can we. Let us explore the practical wisdom hidden within the lost teachings of Christ, practices that can awaken the same power within us. One of the most revolutionary teachings Jesus imparted was that the kingdom of God is within you. This was not a metaphor. It was a spiritual law. Every sacred tradition, from the Buddhist monks of Tibet to the Egyptian initiates, taught the same principle. Divinity is not external. The true temple is within the human soul. The seeker must turn inward to find the ultimate truth. This is why silent contemplation and inner work were central to every ancient school of wisdom. Practical exercise, the practice of inner stillness. Find a place of silence, a moment where no distractions exist. Close your eyes and turn inward. Ask yourself, not with words, but with awareness, who am I beneath all identities? Observe the space that arises. This is the gateway to the divine within. The mind will resist. The ego will create noise. But those who persist will begin to hear the whispers of the higher self. The same voice that guided every master who walked this path before us. If Jesus studied in India, Tibet, and Egypt, then he would have learned what the ancients knew well. Breath is the bridge between the physical and the spiritual. Breath is the secret to controlling one's energy and consciousness. Even in Christian tradition, the concept of ruach in Hebrew and pneuma in Greek means both breath and spirit. When practiced with awareness, breathing is not just a physical act. It becomes a method of spiritual activation. Practical exercise, the breath of the Christos. This practice is inspired by pranayama, India, chi cultivation, China, and the sacred breathwork of the Egyptian initiates. 1. Sit with a straight spine. Close your eyes. 2. Inhale deeply through the nose for 4 seconds. Imagine drawing in divine energy. 3rd, hold the breath for 4 seconds. Feel it expanding within you. 4. Exhale slowly for 6 seconds. Release all tension, thoughts, and resistance. 5. Repeat for 10 cycles. With time, this simple practice expands the mind, clears the emotions, and awakens the dormant energy within. One of the greatest secrets of the mystery schools, whether in Tibet, Egypt, or the Druids of the West, was that speech is vibration. Vibration shapes reality. This is why Jesus' words held power, his voice healed, commanded, and awakened. And this is why ancient mantras, sacred names, and divine affirmations were used by initiates to align their energy with higher planes of reality. Speak aloud with full presence and intention. I am aligned with the divine source. I am a vessel for wisdom and truth. I am the architect of my reality. Feel the energy behind the words, as if they are already true. Repeat daily as a conscious practice of transformation. The more you align your speech with truth, power, and purpose, the more you will see reality bending to reflect your inner state. Every true master, from Buddha to Jesus, from the ancient sages to the greatest mystics, understood one law. The path to enlightenment is the path of selfless service. Jesus did not hoard his wisdom. He did not use it for personal gain. Instead, he gave everything to uplift those who were lost, broken, and searching. This is the true alchemy of the soul, transformation through selflessness, raising one's own vibration by elevating others. Practical exercise, conscious giving one. Ask yourself, who can I uplift today? 2. Perform one act of service, whether physical, emotional, or spiritual, without expecting anything in return. 3. Observe the shift in energy within you. The more you give from a place of divine alignment, the more you receive in ways beyond material comprehension. The lost years of Jesus were not merely a historical gap. They were a path of seeking, learning, transforming, and ultimately transcending, one that anyone can follow if they have the courage to walk it. The true message of his missing years is this: Spiritual evolution is a process of deep self-discovery. The wisdom of the ancients still exists, waiting for those who seek it. The greatest transformation does not come from external worship, but from internal mastery. And so, the question remains, are you ready to embark on your own journey of transformation? Because the same path of the initiates that turned a man into the Christ still exists. And those who walk it will discover, as he did, that the divine has never been outside of us, only waiting to be remembered within. For centuries, the lost years of Jesus have remained an enigma, a silence in history that has led to endless speculation, debate, and secrecy. But perhaps this silence was intentional. Perhaps these missing years were not meant to be recorded in traditional scripture because they were part of an initiatory path, a path that transforms a seeker into a master, an ordinary man into a divine being, a path that is not meant to be told but experienced. The journey of Jesus, if we piece together the clues, was not one of blind obedience to tradition, but one of self-discovery, universal wisdom, and inner transformation. From the teachings of the Buddhist monks in the East, to the sacred mysteries of Egypt, to the esoteric knowledge of the Druids and ancient sages, he walked the path of enlightenment, not as a passive follower, but as an awakened initiate. And in doing so, he unlocked the divine potential within himself. But here lies the greatest secret. This path did not end with him. Everything he learned, everything he became, every teaching he left behind, it was not meant to be worshipped. It was meant to be followed, not as an external religion, but as an internal transformation. If his missing years were spent in the pursuit of divine mastery, then what does that mean for us? It means that spiritual evolution is not given, it is earned. It means that wisdom is not granted, it is sought. And it means that enlightenment is not exclusive. It is available to all who walk the path. The question is, will you walk it? Will you step beyond the limits of doctrine, beyond the illusions of separation, and seek the hidden truths that were never lost, only forgotten? Because the kingdom of heaven is not in a temple, nor a book, nor a law. It is within. It has always been within, waiting for those who dare to look. If this journey has resonated with you, if these ideas have awakened something within, then do not let the path end here. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe Jesus traveled to India, Egypt, or beyond? What do you think was the greatest wisdom he uncovered in his lost years? And if you wish to uncover more hidden knowledge, more ancient truths, more forgotten wisdom, then subscribe, because this is only the beginning. The journey into the unknown never ends. And for those who seek, the hidden truth will always reveal itself. Thanks for watching.